All right, I will say good morning. Good morning. Let us begin. We are continuing Mesillas Hashem today. Actually going to finish Perek Chof Gimel in Mesillas Yesharim. So the Ramchal writes as follows, coming to the end of the Perek of Knias Ha'anova. How does one acquire the Midah, the attribute of humility? So the Ramchal writes, Od Mafsidi Ha'anova. See here, we're focusing a bit more on the things ultimately, again, which cause a person to lose out on the midah of anava. What detracts from the midah of humility? He writes, This is so profound. He says it's going ahead and spending too much time with people who engage in chanifa. What's chanifa? Well, loosely translated as flattery. Flattery. So people who, surrounding yourself with people who are constant flatterers. What's wrong with that? Asher lignov libo bechanufasam l'man yitav lahem yishabchu v'yiramuv b'hagdil ma sheyesh bo min hamaylos ala tachlis u'b'hosev alav ma she'en bo klal. Why is chanifa? First of all, let's define our terms. What's flattery? So flattery really occurs in one of two ways. Either a person goes ahead and takes something positive that I do have and amplifies it to a point that's untrue. Right? So you could take something, in other words, the core attribute might be true, but flattery then goes in and takes a core element that's true, amplifies it in a way that's untrue. I'll just tell you something interesting. The Shulchan Aruch paskins that in Yardeya, in the halachos of a hesped, that when delivering a eulogy, you're allowed to exaggerate. You're allowed to exaggerate a little bit. It's like if a person had a good midah, you're allowed to go ahead and build on it. So the Shach says, why is that possible? Isn't that line? I think it's the Shach who brings down. Why isn't that line? And he explains, so it's not. Because if a person had a good midah, we assume that what? If they had more time and more resources, they would have done even more with that particular midah. But there's only one time in life that you're allowed to do that with someone, and that's when they're dead, right? Why? Because this way, the dead person can't become a Baal Gaiva. The problem with flattery in this world, right? When a person is alive, the challenge with flattery is everyone loves flattery. Everyone loves it. And the problem is it goes to your head and off, as we're going to see, and it's not true. So two forms of flattery. Taking something that's true and amplifying it to an untrue degree, or saying things that are not true at all and trying to frame them into a truth. What's the whole point of flattery, Chavra? What's the whole point of flattery? Right? We've all done this. What's the whole point of flattery? You want something. So you're going to tell a person something they want to hear in order to be able to get something from them. That's the goal. He says, "B'hagdil ma sheyesh bo min hamaylos ala tachlis u'b'hosef al ma she'en u'lefamim shema sheyesh bo hu ha'hefech shema shemishabchin oso." So both say the danger is sometimes even in flattery, what happens? That sometimes what ends up occurring is that which the person says about me is even the very opposite of what I possess. In other words, there's really like three fundamental levels, right? Level number one is taking something that's true and going ahead and amplifying it to an untrue degree. Level number two, ultimately, again, is going ahead and taking something that's untrue and saying that it's true. Level number three is saying something that's actually the polar opposite, the exact opposite of who and what I am, and trying to create a reality around that. V'hinei sof, so we'll say, so this is so incredibly profound. Sof, das ha'adam kala, v'tivo chalash, u'mispata benakel. What ends up happening? I will say this is so profound. At the end of the day, das ha'adam kala, what does that mean? People are easily swayed. V'tivo chalash, people in their nature are weak. Now I will say, remember again, we spoke about this before, and people are easily appeased. All the more so is something for which I have a natural proclivity. I will say that Ramchal said, what do we all have a natural predisposition for? Gaiva. Man inherently is a Baal Gaiva. Which I will say, again, so understand, what does that mean? At the end of the day, my natural default is egocentricity. It's about me. It's about me. Everything is about me. That's my default. And I have to spend my life trying to work against that to overcome that and to shift from being a Baal Gaiva to being a Baal Anova, ultimately to being a selfless person. So Ramchal says, here's the problem. When someone flatters me, it feeds into the very default position that I have, which is Gaiva, which is arrogance, and that's the danger. So suddenly I'm soaking this up, right? Because what am I thinking? What am I thinking inside when someone's flattering me? What am I thinking? Finally, the world sees my greatness, right? What's taken so long? I can't believe it. I've known it all these years, right? But I'm a tzaddik nister, so I never wanted to talk about it, but Baruch Hashem, now everyone else sees it. And again, let's say, on a deeper level, do you know why flattery is so tempting? Because what do we want? At the end of the day, what do I want more than anything? I just want to feel good about myself. We spoke, those also on the Achei College spoke a lot about this, how so often in life, like we're broken in so many ways, and I know that I'm broken. I just want to feel good about myself. That's really, at the end, that's what I want to feel good about myself. So therefore, again, what ends up happening over here? What ends up happening is that when somebody goes ahead and says something that feeds into this, it allows me to feel good about myself, which is so tempting. So he goes on, he says, certainly again, when the person who's delivering the words of flattery is someone who I hold of, he comes to so we'll say, especially when the words of flattery come from someone who I think is a good person, so I don't doubt that they're trying to manipulate me, even though at the end of the day, often that is what is occurring. It becomes like a poison. It becomes like a poison that sets inside of me. And what ends up happening? Maminlo, I believe it. And I fall into the trap of gaiva and I break. Now I will say, so again, I want to point out with the Ramchal over here, he's not trying to highlight the dangers of flattery. That we know. What he's talking about over here is, be careful who you surround yourself with. Because there are people, ultimately again, who are flatterers. This is what they do, right? They're Ba'ali Chanifa. And it's so tempting to surround myself with people like this. Why? Because they make me feel good about me. The problem, as we're going to see, is a twofold problem. Number one is I become a Baal Gaiva. And again, once I become a Baal Gaiva, all the dangers that we discussed, that's number one. Number two, I will say is, when you fall into the trap of absorbing flattery, people can manipulate you to do all kinds of things that you would have never done on your own. He gives examples. Yoash, Asher Hetiv Lasos Kol Yimei Hora Yoyodo HaKohen. So I will say that Ramchal uses the example of Yoash, who was the son of Achazia, the king of Yehuda, whose Rebbe was Yehoyada. Yehoyada, the Kohen Gadol. All the days that Yehoyada was alive, so again, Yoash did the right thing. Acharei Mos Yehoyada, Bo Avada V'Eschilu L'Hachnif Lo L'Hagdil Hilulav, Ad Shedimu Le'Eloka. As Sham HaMelech Aleihem. So we'll say, so again, we're going to see that Ramchal brings a number of examples of this by kings, because kings, leaders, are especially susceptible to this, because at the end of the day, remember again, they're surrounded by advisors. And what do advisors want? What are advisors looking for? They're jockeying for other positions as well. How are they going to get their positions? By telling the leader what it is that they want to hear in order to have an elevated status in the eyes of the leader. So here's an example of this. And the Ramchal says something amazing. He says, most people in leadership positions fall prey to this. Because often they are surrounded by people who don't care about them, but who care about themselves, and recognize that if they could flatter, if they could become Bali Hanifa, manipulate the leader, then ultimately, again, it'll satisfy their own needs at the end of the day. Al-Kain, therefore, what is the end of the parak? Al-Kain, Misha in the Barosho, someone who has clarity of mind. What says in of Barosho means clarity of mind. Yoser Yizar v'yaimim b'maaseh misharotze liknos lo chaver o liyoez o lepakid al beso. Has to be very careful who he surrounds himself with. Who are the people who are going to be your friends? Who are the people from whom you're going to ask advice? And who are the people who you're going to put in charge of your household? Who are the people you're going to surround yourself with and whose word you're going to rely upon? Listen to this. Pay more attention to your friends, the people you ask eitzah from, and the people you put in charge of things. Pay more attention to that. More pay attention. And I'll say, sometimes we pay more attention, right, to the food we're going to eat or to the wine we're going to drink, right, than we pay to the attention to the people that we're surrounding ourselves with. And the Ramchal says, it's so foolish. Listen to this. If you eat the wrong food, you drink the wrong wine, what's the worst case scenario? Right? You get a stomach ache. Right? You hurt your body. That's the worst case scenario. But ultimately, again, surround yourself with the wrong people, and they could destroy your very sense of self. The David HaMelech alav hashalom holich b'derech tamim hu yishar sini lo yeshev b'kerev beisi oser emiyah. David HaMelech says in Tehillim that only someone who walks b'derech tamim on a complete path will be a person who serves me, but a person who engages in deceitful behavior will not sit in my household. So David HaMelech again himself made this decision that when appointing his kitchen cabinet, his core leadership, to identify people who are upstanding individuals. Because we'll say, the gadlus of it is, even David HaMelech recognized he wasn't immune to chanifa. He wasn't immune to flattery. No one is immune to flattery. No one is immune to flattery. Because everyone wants to feel good about themselves. Right? Everyone wants to we all want to feel built up. It's so tempting. So even David HaMelech says, I have to be careful about who I install in my household. Elo, shivaki shel chaverim tamimim, find good friends. I'll say, what a profound mandate. Find good friends. She'iru einav b'mashu iverbo v'yochichu ba'avasam v'nimtzu matzilam osam mikara. We'll say, sometimes we often use the word friend and acquaintance synonymously. And the truth is, what's the real definition of a friend? The real definition of a friend is someone who, when you're doing something wrong, is going to tell you you're doing something wrong. That is the definition of a friend. Now, the truth is, whenever someone tells you I'm doing something wrong, it's always abrasive. It always hurts. It's always difficult to hear. But if you've ever been on the receiving end of that, you know that once you settle down a little bit, you have immense gratitude for a person like that, who loves you enough to tell you, Lo zu haderech. This is not the right thing to do. This is not the right way to go. This is beneath you. This is not appropriate. So the Ramchal says, find good friends who, when you are engaged in the wrong thing, will tell you, not a good idea. Because I will say very often, I can't see things for what they are. Why? Because I'm in the thick of it. Like Chazal say, which means literally the person incarcerated can't free himself from jail, which is the same thing as the phrase, as you can't see the trees from the forest. So often in my own life, I can't see a lot of things for what they are. But having a good friend who loves me enough to tell me, that's wrong. That's wrong. You really shouldn't do that. You really shouldn't behave. And having the inner strength to accept what my friend, because the reflexive reaction when someone tells you they're doing something wrong, what's the reflexive reaction? Right? No, you must be mistaken. Right? In other words, I'm not doing anything wrong. To have the humility, to have the humility to say that someone who loves me is telling me something and I should at least pay attention to it a little bit, that ultimately saves a person from so much heartache in life. Salvation comes from proper counsel. The ability to live a proper life ultimately again comes from having good friends who ultimately again will tell you what's right and what's wrong. So I will say, therefore, in this last piece of this particular parak, the Ramchal ultimately closes out the midah of anava by focusing us on the dangers of having the wrong peer group. Surrounding yourself, let's say, and again, I'll just end with this. So we've mentioned this so many times. So often we think, I could be friends with anyone, hang around with anyone. I'm going to be personally strong enough, it's not going to impact me. And it's not true. Everything in life we do impacts us, including the people we keep company with. They impact us. Surrounding myself with the wrong people could prevent me from seeing certain personal failures, could amplify a sense of gaiva, and totally derail my mission in life. Conversely, surrounding myself, or at least having in my life, a couple of real friends who have the courage to tell me, who love me enough to tell me what's really right and what's really wrong can make all of the difference in life success and engender a true sense of humility. Rabbi say Mazel Tov on finishing Parach of Gimel, and Miras Hashem tomorrow we begin Parach of Dalin, new midah of Yiras Hachet. Shkoyach.